For more on tonight's Republican races, let's bring in Marc Short. He served as Legislative Affairs Director during the Trump administration, as well as former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Marc, so good to have you here.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start right off with the races tonight, West Virginia, Nebraska. What do these two particular elections tell us about the continued long arm and the power that the former President Trump still has over the Republican Party?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Donald Trump still has enormous influence, but I think we can oversimplify this in some ways where there's often more nuance. So in West Virginia, you actually had two incumbent Republicans who were merged into the same district. One is a longtime appropriator, one is a more conservative candidate who's going to favor in a primary the more conservative candidate. Nebraska, likewise, is very competitive, but I don't know that you can draw too many conclusions from these two races that paint a picture about where the party's going long term.
And when we talk about inflation in particular, I mean, it seems like this would be a slam dunk, really, for Republicans for the midterm elections. But then I'm curious what you thought about President Biden's comments today, where he talked about how these ultra MAGA policies would be really detrimental to the average American.
Well, Lindsay, I think that the reality is that the Democrat base is largely depressed at this point, not just because of inflation, but also soaring gas prices. I think we began to see the polling numbers deteriorate for President Biden after the Afghanistan withdrawal and surrender. And so it's been a precipitous decline. They're looking for something to motivate their base, and I think Donald Trump does that. And so they want to continue to make Donald Trump part of the election, but he's not really on the ballot. But it is why you're looking to have open hearings on the January 6th committee in June and a report in September to try to keep it out there. And there's no doubt that I think Democrats do feel that the Supreme Court decision pending on the Dobbs case is one that they're hoping rallies some of their base as well.
What do you make of some of the culture wars being waged by some Republicans at this time? We're talking about abortion, banning books, even going after Disney in some cases. Do you think that these are top of mind for many voters who are going to be heading to the polls?
Well, I think life is a central issue for many of us, and for many Republican voters, certainly it is. But I think what you continue to see is the issues that are front and center, as you mentioned, are inflation and gas prices. And most all the polling, those continue to be the biggest concern for Americans in this immediate moment.
You feel good about Republicans for the midterm elections? I know we're going ahead very far.
Well, I think that it would be really very difficult to see a scenario in which Republicans do not take over the House. I think the Senate is a little bit more challenging because if you recall in 2010, Republicans won 63 seats in a landslide, but we actually didn't gain the Senate because we nominated some candidates who actually could not win statewide in a primary, in a general election. And so I think that's a similar dynamic that you're facing this cycle is, will we nominate candidates who can win statewide, or will you nominate candidates who have a more difficult time? So the Senate's a little bit, I think, more of a challenge for Republicans, but I think the House is almost a lock.
And we talked to Mark Esper earlier today, and he really talked about concerns about this division within the Republican Party, with those who are still going to be the diehard, Trump supporters, and those who are really looking for another alternative. Is that a concern for you?
I don't think so. I'm not so sure that it needs to be either or. And for right now, I think Republicans can be motivated for the midterms where it doesn't need to be about some campaign in 2024. We should be focused on winning the House and the Senate. And also, I think a lot of these governor's races, I think that's going to be essential to long-term success for Republicans. It gets a little bit less attention than what happens in Washington, D.C.
Marc Short, such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Come back on anytime.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.